All right, so here in part 2, let's discuss a little bit more another case. And this will be something that you'll see again on your online homework and quiz for credit, and then you'll see something similar on the exam for Unit 1. Tracy is single and had an adjusted gross income of $37,000 in 2012. She also has the following items. So that $37,000, that's been adjusted somewhat already. She might have had IRA contributions that she made. This might already have recognized some types of local taxes like sales tax and things like that. But $37,000 after those adjustments, I think, what are the other possibilities there? Alimony, that's not that likely for a single person. And then other cases, there are other special circumstances as well, but there's been some adjustments perhaps, and so her income might have really been more than $37,000, but after some adjustments, if there were any, it's down to $37,000. Go to the top of the next page. Here's a list of potential items to deduct. I just knocked my notebook on the floor. Sorry. Some potential items to deduct. Unreimbursed medical expenses, state income tax, interest expense on both a first and second mortgage, real estate or property tax, and then interest on a car loan and a credit card, and some charitable donations. All right, so we got 8 different possibilities there. Which of those are and which are not deductible? Well, there's 2 of these that are not deductible at all. The interest expense on the car loan and the credit card, those things are not deductible. Interest expense for normal citizens for their personal income taxes are deductible for mortgages, so those items up there, those will be deductible. They're also deductible for student loans, but they're not deductible for car loans and credit cards. And that's an important thing to know. All right. The rest of these, state income tax, that's deductible. In Florida, that doesn't matter much to us, but it is part of the calculation for a lot of people. Property tax, that does matter, and that does definitely pop up here in Florida if you own a home. Property or real estate tax, that's deductible, and so are the charitable donations. The last of these is the top one, these unreimbursed medical expenses. The thing with that is those are deductible, but not in full. They're only deductible in part. You're allowed to deduct anything over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income in unreimbursed medical expenses. That's one of the reasons that we're doing this problem, because that topic comes up relatively frequently here in these problems, and then in your homework, online homework and quiz, and then on the exam it will show up again. So let's go back to the start here. Tracy, $37,000 in adjusted gross income. Okay, so when I'm doing number 14 here, I'm going to start with $37,000. Okay. And then it says, how much make Tracy claim in itemized deductions? Well, let's do the full ones here. Let's do the state income tax, $1,850. All right. So I'm going to do the kind of a log of these here. Let's do state income tax, $1,850. All right. Let's do interest expense on her mortgage, first and second, of $3,040, and $1,200 for the second, $3,040 for the first, $1,200 for the second. Property tax or real estate tax, $700. And then the next 2, we said were not deductible. The interest expense on the car loan or the credit card, not going to help her. So gift to charity, $300. Let's put that in here. Those are all deductible. Great. But what about these unreimbursed medical expenses, $3,000? She doesn't get to just write those all off in whole. She only gets to write off the portion above 7.5% of her adjustable gross income. So $37,000 times 0.075, that's the reason I wrote that over here to start with. Right. $37,000 times 7.5%, which is 0.075, is $2,775. Okay. Effectively, what this really means is Tracy's responsible for this amount of medical expenses without getting any kind of tax deduction for them. But anything above $2,775 is deductible. So she had $3,000 in expenses. Anything above $2,775, is deductible. That's $225 more in deductions. So let's add a $225 from the medical for this. Let's add up all of these now. 225 plus 1850 plus 3040 plus 1200 plus 700 plus 300. I get 7315. That would be her deductions if she itemized. Now, of course, she has the option to just take the standard deduction as well, so that'll come up in the next question, but the answer to number 14, which is how much may she claim as itemized deductions, is $7,315. I'm checking the solutions again, and I'm looking at number 14, and this is posted, of course, in your Chapter 4 folder. There it is. So instead of just laying that out like there without any further explanation, that's where it came from. And it's kind of one of the more involved items to try for this chapter, so I figured what the heck. All right, what about number 15? So number 15 asks, using the information in problem 14, if the standard deduction is $5,950 and her exemption is $3,800, what is her taxable income? Well, the first question here, just kind of like we did back in number 10, the first question is, well, does she itemize or not? And the answer is yes, because $5,950 of the standard deduction, which it is for a single taxpayer, is less than this itemized amount. $7,315 is better, so why subtract $5,950 as a deduction when you can subtract $7,315? All right, so let's talk about her taxable income. $37,000 was her adjustable gross. Let's subtract, since she's going to itemize, $7,315. That gets us down to what? $29,685. Okay. Now there's also an exemption. She gets one exemption since she's filing for herself and has no other dependents in the problem. So subtract $3,800 more from this, and you're down to what? 25,000. Let's say 25,885, right? 25,885. Right, and that should be the answer. That's her taxes. Ask what is her taxable income. Right, well, we've taken out her deductions and her exemptions. Right, and there you go. There's the solution from, oh, there it is, number 15. 25,885 is the answer. She decided to itemize. That means a little more paperwork. She has to file Schedule A, but it's definitely going to be worth it because she'll save some in tax. Her taxable income is down to 25,885. And this is how it usually works. You might be in a certain tax bracket, but after you do deductions and exemptions, your base, your taxable income, for most people gets cut down quite a bit. So you might be in something like the 25% tax bracket and really only pay effectively 14% or 17% or whatever of your actual income in tax. So the bracket that you're in is a rate, but your tax is going to actually be something different. Your effective taxable rate. Let's just for the sake of argument, let's take a look at the book and talk about what Tracy's rate would be. This is not in the problem. This is just something I thought I'd show you. My phone's buzzing like heck over there because my dad's trying to call. Of course, of all the times for that. All right, this is on page 108. All right, page 108, and single taxpayer. That's Tracy. Okay. We've calculated her taxable income. Her taxable income was $25,885. So she falls in this second row here. She makes more than $8,700 in taxable income, but less than $35,350. That means her tax bill is $870 plus 15% of everything over $8,700. Now, what this is actually doing is it's taking the amount that you owe on the first $8,700 and it's just putting that as a set amount, excuse me, right there. And it's pretty obvious in this case because 10% of $8,700 is $870. And then on top of that, you got to pay incremental tax, 15%, on the amount above $8,700. Tracy's in what we call the 15% tax bracket, right? But she's actually going to pay less than 15% in tax because some of her income is only taxed at 10%. And then on top of that, if she actually made, she actually started with an income much higher than this. We had deductions and exemptions to get us down to this 25,885 number. Her effective tax rate's even less. All right, let's just do the calculation, though. So if we follow that formula, we would say for number 15 here, her tax is going to be $870 plus 15%, or 0.15, times everything above 8,700, right? That's how this is written. 15% plus, $870 plus 15% of everything over 8,700. Well, what amount does she make over 8,700? You take 25,885 minus 8,700, and you'll have the answer. So I'm going to type in. You make sure you're careful with your order of operations for things like this. If you're not a real math person, you got to realize that you don't multiply the 15% by the 25,885. You got to do the difference first. 25,885 minus 8,700 equals, and now she owes 15% on that. 25,77.75. So 870 plus 25,77.75. That's her actual tax bill. So when I add those two together, I get 3427.75. That's how much she's going to owe in tax this year. Now, think back. How much tax does she? How much of her income is she actually paying in tax? Well, 3427.75 divided by her adjustable gross income of $37,000. That's a lot less than you might first think, as a rate anyway. That's about 9.3%. Right? And if she actually had made even more and she just had some deductions like for her IRA or whatever, this rate would be even less because the numerator of what she actually brought in pay would be even greater. So even though she's in what we call the 15% tax bracket, she's really only paying effectively 9.3% in tax, or maybe even less. Okay, that's just a little bit of talking points. Try your other homework. So we did numbers 5, 6, 10, 14, and 15 together. Try some more on your own, please. And make sure you do them all on your own. And then you'll be ready to try the homework assignment and quiz from Chapter 4. All right, thanks for your time. We'll see you next time.